Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Who remembers what is going on?
I learned a
I
lot about scavers.
Hmm.
I forget.
Well, that's gonna be a
So
problem.
we are sorry. So we have finally gotten to the edge of the crystal sphere, and we can
Mhm.
see the wild. The edge. It's a bubble. You know,
Mhm.
we see the thingy. And I'm sorry. I'm trying to find the folder where to store this real quick. Where's Spelljammer? Where the fuck is
Gotten to the
Spelljammer?
edge of the realm space. Realm
Realm
space.
space. Thank you. Thank you. Um, and we see a tower amongst the asteroids as close to the edge as they could possibly get. We have what's the name of the person is the
Topla.
what is it?
Topla.
Topla. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Topla's
like a
tower.
topographic map.
Yeah. Um and we have reached there. There's a lot of scavers and other wildlife that they're predating on, but before that, we had a very fun time. Kendori ride.
Kindori ride.
Ride. Kendori ride.
And
Uh
More magical space wonderment.
mhm. Micken was MVP.
Meekin is very tired.
Micken needs some sleep. He needs a good long rest. Uh, some wonderment with space whales. And the ladybug baby carrier, featuring one of the larger space whales. We collected from the Rygar. Um, Booker and Trixie both speak Celestial. It's very interesting.
Hmm. That is a good point. I forgot. I kind of glossed over that.
Mm-hmm. Um,
You got the Rygar's like fucking planner essentially.
yeah. Button has learned that people's limbs fall asleep. That's very big. Um, just scrolling through my notes real quick. I think that's the major beats. Yeah,
Yeah.
Liliana and Booker have bonded some more. They were already friends, but now they're even better friends.
Booker has reassembled his shit, which was
Mm-hmm.
scattered all over the fucking place at
True.
the start of last session.
He has composed himself.
But you all reach the asteroid line that is at the very edge of realm space, or at least one of the asteroid lines. And at the very end of these asteroids, you see a kind of haphazardly crooked, you would almost say makeshift and ramshackle tower, just surrounded by fish and birds and little bits of floating rock and cosmic dust. And Flinch informs you all that that is Topless Tower. And as you start to navigate a little closer with the ladybug, you see more and more clearly the just plethora of small flying and swimming animals that for some of you you might say infested this tower and asteroid. Others you might just say living in. And you can see at the very bottom of the tower, kind of facing out towards the dock. At first, all you see is kind of this silhouette of a blue, uh, clothed figure. And they seem to be kind of watching and observing as at the very end of the dock. There we go. At the very end of the dock, you see a double check this. Sorry, I'm getting pop-ups and notifications that I need to go away.
Hmm.
At the very end of the dock, what you can see as you get closer is just kind of rickety and ramshackle, and every fourth or fifth board on it seems to be broken or like kind of crooked and out of place. There's two gray kind of shark-like creatures that are kind of viciously fighting over what you think is the remains of some large space bird. And this woman, as you get closer, you can see kind of longer blonde hair with a little bit of curl and wave to it sticking out underneath a massive blue wide brimmed hat. Seems to be watching this just kind of passively. And as she kind of shifts and tilts her head, you can see nuzzled and kind of hunkered down close to the top of the hat a tiny blue bird of some sort. It just seems to be resting there. And though you can't make out her features completely, you can tell the moment where she seems to decide that you are truly approaching her home and planning on landing there or becoming adjacent to it. As she stands up very quickly from this kind of wooden rocking chair and starts walking very briskly across the asteroid down towards the dock and lifts a hand. And from her fingertips, you just see this spray of kind of fiery lights jettison out. And you just hear a very faint little lilt of words up and down. And let me see here. What are your passive perceptions? I can't find my document right now.
Buttons is 18.
Booker's passive perception is 19.
I think Trixie's is fairly high too. So all three of you can just hear very tail end what you assume to be some sort of go on and get. Like she is yelling at these, what you quickly realize to be scavers. Yeah, 17. And as the fiery magic lashes out at them, they very quickly turn and swim away in different directions. One going off towards the void, and another dipping down very quickly underneath the asteroid and disappearing. And the figure, as the Lady Luck slows and is close enough that you can start to kind of throw ropes to the rock itself. You can see this figure standing in blue robes and a wide brimmed hat, completely barefoot. And she kind of rests her hands on her hips. as she watches, not trying to stop you guys as you start to land, or at least come aside.
I love that art. That is such a cute art.
Mm-hmm. She looks straight out of an indie video game, and I love it.
Very Ghibli.
Mm-hmm. Ghibli concept art.
That is actually from the book itself.
Huh.
Huh.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by the image. What is she doing?
She's just kind of come down to like the side of the asteroid and is kind of watching you guys. The dock itself is a little too small, a little too rickety to be able to easily pull up beside with the Lady Luck, but you're able to try and cast a couple lines onto the asteroid itself, kind of moor yourself, and she's just kind of watching all of you. Hands on her hips, just head tilted a little bit, and as her head tilts, you can see the little bird kind of start to slide along the wide brim of the hat, and then just take off into flight as it falls off completely, and she doesn't seem to notice nor react.
Hmm. How? So we're circling around on the ladybug, uh, and she's regarding us. This is a small dock, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does, is there any other ship moored at this dock?
You see, kind of on the opposite side, not a ship, but what you could assume to be kind of a lifeboat type thing.
Okay.
Mm. I mean, is this dock like too small for someone to walk on, or like so? Like Button is small, so how small is this dock?
It just looks short to me. Like it
Again,
probably normal
it's
width, just short.
too small for the ladybug to come up beside. You can
Mm-hmm.
walk on it if you want. However, it is questionable in quality and upkeep.
Ah, should avoid then. Okay, so how do we get the ship to the
Just,
asteroid?
we can pull up the ladybug closer to it, and we could probably jump like underneath.
I thought it was too big to get close.
It's too big to dock there, but it's not too
Oh,
big to get
okay.
close and then jump off there.
It is too big to get close to the dock, the planks of wood. The
Okay,
asteroid
okay. But we could
itself,
be like here.
yes.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I was misunderstanding a lot there. Um, yeah. Skirt. Park the bug along one of these two sides, and I mean,
So yeah, well, like
do
is
we jump?
there's
Button is going to wave from the ship before we leave the ship.
Mm, the woman just kind of seems to take all of you in. And as you wave Button, there's just kind of this hand raise and kind of a greeting gesture. It's not a wave, just a lifted hand.
Hmm.
And then you see her eyes, which are also this kind of muted blue color that her robes and hat are, continue to drift, and then they land on Crux and Flinch, who are trying to help in the mooring and slowing down of the ship. And you just see this slow, wide grin spread across her face.
Oh, that's concerning.
Nah, this it's not concerning. This music is too nice for it to be concerning.
Alright. Well, Button, after greeting, will assist with docking. Not mooring, not using the dock.
Mhm.
Parking. Hit the space E brake.
Mm. As the ship comes to a stop and you're able to kind of get it up alongside this asteroid and kind of put out the planks to exit, she moves up a little closer, still kind of keeping a wide berth, and Crux kind of makes a point to shuffle himself off the ship first. And as soon as his feet hit the ground on the asteroid, he just kind of throws open his arms, and the woman bounces over and wraps him in as much of a bear hug as you can give a fucking hippo.
Hmm.
And there's some very quick chatter back and forth that you're not able to quite make out, as they are kind of talking over each other. And he sets her down after he's kind of picked her up and given her a squeeze, and she turns and wraps Flinch in a very similar hug before she stands straight and kind of looks over the rest of the crew and head tilted. Now, I really don't know who any of you are.
Booker will disembark from the ship and kind of hop over to the actual asteroid. And once he has more sure footing, he'll give a two-finger salute and flick his fingers and be like, "Hi there, I'm Booker. I am the current operating captain of this ladybug here."
She'll walk over and hold out a hand to shake.
I'll shake.
And as she shakes your hand, it's very clear that she is not physically strong. She doesn't have the tight grip that you would expect and you often get from sailors. However, she has extremely calloused hands. She has done some sort of work. And
Hmm.
as each of the rest of you disembark, she will similarly wait for an introduction and then hold out a hand to shake.
I'm gonna forget. I'm gonna forget someone, but Booker will introduce everyone and throw a title on their name. He'll gesture to Button first, since uh since Button, you were the last one to talk and not Trixie. And he'll gesture to Button and be like, "This is our cartographer and navigator, Mr. Button."
Button gives a small wave. Um, have the tip of their index finger and their middle finger against the brim of their hat, and kind of having their arm gesture outwards in a single wave. Hello.
Then he'll gesture to Trixie and say like, "This is our first mate and resident cook, Trixie." Anything, Trixie?
Is your headset dead, Iris?
Does she have to mute for a bit? Ah.
Hmm.
Well, there is the push to talk feature,
Mm-hmm.
That
which
is a
don't sleep
feature.
on that. It's a good feature.
Because it is a little hard to RP through text. No worries.
Oh, good. I assume Trixie takes her new title with a lot of grace.
Mm.
First mate and cook. Has she ever cooked before?
Her version of cooking is just pulling another fruit out of the fucking bag.
Is it fruit the salad?
Hmm.
I don't know why, but Trixie gives me vibes of someone who has never cooked before. Someone who would burn water.
She's got wisdom.
Yeah. True, that's true.
I
Okay, so
assume
she.
you need wisdom for cooking utensils.
Yeah.
I don't actually know, but I assume.
Mhm. Alright, she'll roll with it.
And then with Micken stepping off, he will gesture to Micken. That was a particularly loud bloop for
Jesus,
some
what the
reason.
fuck?
But Booker will gesture to Micken and say, and this is our chief pilot and resident wizard, Micken.
Megan just kind of gives us like a blink of like not expecting to be introduced, and then a tiny, tiny little wave, and the woman makes a point again to shake everybody's hands, including Micken's, and she nods. And I'm Topla. Pleasure to meet all you.
And
Oh,
it would seem you've already met Mr. Crooks here.
yes. We him go way back as far as him needing maps and things.
Hmm. And then look to Button. This seems kind of like your specialty.
Yes. I also enjoy maps. And create maps. And collect maps.
Well, you'll definitely have to be going around all the aura towers in the realm space and the other spaces then, won't you?
I
You would
haven't yet.
and you would know that there tends to be a small handful of towers or bases or small outposts towards the edge of various crystal spheres that
Mm-hmm.
are used for cartography and navigation. Some just to look either outward or inward and track movements. Some can even can serve like lighthouses almost for the edges of crystal spheres. Um, they are not in any way connected beyond just being connected due to a similar purpose.
Okay. Button. What exactly did you say? I didn't catch the first part.
Uh-oh.
Uh,
Like this.
hold on. I'm getting some weird feedback. Joe, can you be DJ again?
Yes. Give me a moment.
Just,
Why don't you send him the link?
yeah. So it's this one, and then when we go inside, this one.
you spell always?
Now, what part did you say that you were missing?
The first part. She mentioned the tower, but I didn't quite catch what she said about the towers.
Well, essentially, if are talking about my lore drop or her words?
No, her dialogue.
Oh, just like if you're into maps, then you're gonna be wanting to go see all these.
Oh, okay, thank you. Button just nod. That is an objective I have.
She nods and kind of looks over everybody and just motions towards her tower. And now that you're a little closer, you can see it seems to be made of kind of this white gray stone, and though there are pieces of rock and cosmic dust that's just kind of floating around it, trapped in the gravitational pull of the tower itself, the tower, even though it's crooked and misshapen, seems to be made of a singular piece of stone rather than bricks that have been misaligned and shifted through wear and tear. You're not exactly sure how, but it seems like the tower, aside from the roof, is made to be crooked like this. And she just kind of gestures to it with this broad, sweeping movement. Well, welcome to Home Sweet Home then. Why don't I show you all around?
Please do, Booker says, tilting his head as they approach the tower, just like, looks a little broken, but, He doesn't say that too loudly, but he does say it out loud, like, oh.
And she leads you up a few small steps into the first floor, and as you step inside, some of you may have noticed it outside, but when you step inside, it is immediately apparent as something that feels kind of unsettling, that aside from the large window at the top of the tower that you were able to see kind of this massive telescope or spyglass glinting out of on your approach, aside from that, there are no windows that you can see in the rest of this tower until you see her snap a finger and massive floor to ceiling windows pop up all around the circle of the first floor, letting in this kind of rush of light. And inside, you see 4 ring-shaped garden terraces that line the walls of the chamber, going upward. They're spaced out about 10 to 15 feet apart, vertically, and are just overflowing with fruit trees and vegetables and golden wheat on one ring, and are just surprisingly lush and verdant considering what they are and where they are. And as you step inside, you can see first the plants, and then you see birds inside the tower as well. And as the windows open up with the snap of her fingers, you see birds actually start to fly in and out of the tower through these windows. And then you see movement amongst the plants. And as you kind of squint and peer in, trying to get a better look, you can see mechanical gnomes, auto gnomes, at various points on the terraces, the garden terraces, all seeming to be hard at work tending to these plants. And in the very center of the room, you see just a plain kind of wooden platform with ropes on each corner that stretch up, and you could look up and follow the ropes. You see in the ceiling a hole perfectly sized for the platform to fit through, and the ropes stretching up through that hole to the next floor. And Topla kind of moves closer to the center, and arms flung wide, kind of spinning. Now this is where I get all my sustenance from. Get occasional deliveries of soil and the other things I might need from some dowas that come through here, but they get homegrown food and bird eggs in exchange.
Dowas. What are those again?
Penguins, the penguin people.
Okay. Booker just nods and looking up at the rope as it weaves through, like, the kind of moves around in the room. He's just like, I was wondering about that. Considering there's no, well, at least not a big vessel stashed outside on the dock here. Do you ever leave?
Not too often, no. Don't really need to nor want to. Everything I need's right here.
Enough, I suppose.
She just kind of tilts her head. Suppose you're not much of the staying home type then.
Not me. That's why I got on a ship. Or, rather, stuck to one.
And she kind of, you see her kind of nod her head side to side. Oh, fair enough, but see, when you're at one of these outposts or towers, you can see the entire universe if you know where to look. Ain't nothing like it.
Where?
How?
Oh, we'll get to that soon enough. And she walks over and gets onto the platform and just kind of holds one of the ropes and looks very expectantly, and you see Crux and Flinch, kind of trailing behind, very quickly move to stand on the platform behind her. There's a hop skip to their step of like, okay, we gotta go.
Ah. Well, Button will follow suit. Will hop. They would physically jump up onto the platform.
Trixie will also go to platform.
But Button is paying very close attention to the other autognomes and what they are doing, what they are harvesting. They are writing this down.
So, this is a weird question, but do we know Button is an autognome?
I don't know.
I feel like Trixie and Micken might have some inkling, considering Wizpop and the interaction they had with Wizpop.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, so I'm sure, Trixie and Micken would have, like, yeah, you're right, an inkling seems right, because Button's never really explicitly stated it. And they also, like, they're fully covered head to toe. They just kind of just state things as a fact, as in like, yeah, I don't really need to sleep, or like I am not eating. But you did see them drink an entire pint very quickly.
It's not like they have glowing eyes or anything.
That's true, but so do half of the fucking races in this bitch.
Yeah, but
so do
a
half the
glowing
fucking...
eye and a light bulb are a little bit different.
Oh, they're LEDs. They're space LEDs.
It is.
But also, like, there's a lot of weird races.
Well,
and shit.
there's it. I feel like everybody might have an inkling that
Mhm.
Button is perhaps not organic. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, they don't really hide it. They just have no need to, like, state it.
So you don't
Because
know
why would they?
Autognome, Warforged, some type of golem. There's a lot of non-organic creatures.
Mhm.
But unless anybody has made the point of asking, you may not know exactly what creature Button is.
I love that it's like, what creature is Button, not what race they are.
Yeah, the main reason I ask is because Booker would look at the autognomes and then look at Button and try to see if there's any sort of comparison to draw, because they're similar size, both mechanical, but like, I'm pretty sure, yeah, he wouldn't have asked, and I was pretty sure he didn't know. So
I mean, it's up to him if he would have asked, and also, like, you can see it's essentially what you see in the picture. Button's got gloves on. You don't really see any part of their body except that they have glowing eyes. Their hat very conveniently hides their face entirely.
Well, and for credit to Joe and to Booker. The other thing that would kind of clearly lend towards inorganic and possibly man-made of some sort is Button has actively used mending on themselves at several occasions.
that's true. A good point.
Very good point. So they are not organic.
They are not organic, and they wouldn't be. Booker, having some of the magical knowledge that Booker has, would be aware that mending is not something you would use on like a stone golem. It's not crafted enough for mending to really affect them. But as everybody moves onto the platform, Topla just kind of glances around, and like when the last person's foot is on there and they're like stepping on, she just claps her hands twice, and the platform immediately starts to rise and lift through the first floor and up through the opening, kind of stopping on the second floor. And as you look around, it's very clear that this is a living area of some sort. You see to one side, one half of this floor, a very simple kitchen with what looks to be some sort of pantry and an oven and stove set up, and cabinetries and an overflowing kind of fruit basket, and a place where you see some fresh kind of bread and can smell the baking of bread and other food, as two more identical autognomes are stood at the kitchen, seeming to be preparing food. And on the other side of the room, partially hidden behind a room divider, you see a messy, unmade bed and a massive, old wooden wardrobe with a huge bird nest on top. And along the lower half of the walls, stretching on that half of the room, you see bookshelves, which are piled high with and thick, where you have the books standing like they're supposed to, and books and scrolls shoved on top. Just filled with knowledge in what you assume is maps and notebooks and little pieces of paper and parchment. And many of them also seem to have feathers tucked into them. You assume some as bookmarks, some look like the feathers just got in there and were never bothered to be gotten back out. And Tapla just kind of looks around. And this will be where I live through most of the day. I take my meals. Autonomes came with a whole bunch of nifty little recipes that they're starting to make for me.
You don't have to feed them, do you?
Oh no. They just need a little bit of downtime every so often. I mean, I think sometimes they like to try and taste their own food, but I don't think that helps them much. They gave me some deep fried scava the other day that, let's just say, probably shouldn't have been fried.
Ugh.
But they're trying. Make the best of what we got out here.
And what is a scava?
Those are the shark things I was talking about.
Ah, okay.
Cool fucking
Gotcha.
space sharks. Oh,
She had
there's a
fried
whole...
shark.
Which honestly does taste good. I have had that.
Oh.
Maybe not space shark though.
And she again claps her hands. And again, the platform starts to rise through this room into the hole in the ceiling above, and you come out on the top floor of the building. However, with how the building is shifted and crooked and tilting in different ways, rather than coming out in the exact middle of the room where the platform is on the bottommost floor, it actually comes out towards the back half of the room on the topmost floor. And inside, you're immediately greeted by the sight of a massive 10, 15-foot long copper telescope pointing out of a massive arched opening in the wall. You can see two more identical autognomes very carefully polishing the sides of this telescope and fiddling with a few controls that you see. And attached to the walls around this room and even up onto the ceiling are dozens upon dozens of star maps. And scattered across tables in the room, you see more half-finished star maps and sketches of planets and even sketches of landscapes that none of you have ever seen before. And Tapla steps off of the platform and gestures around with this very pleased smile. And this here is my observatory.
Booker just looks at the giant telescope, and he is very, very much awestruck by, like, trying to keep my sentences from being clippable on Twitch. He will look at the giant, like, telescope and like let out a whistle of impressive, like that impressed like whistle. Be like, no kidding, observatory. Oh, this is a real setup here.
And she nods. It's my pride and joy.
Did you make this whole place yourself?
No, well, the tower's been here long before I was, and I didn't make the telescope, though I did provide the designs for it. I'm a little bit more somebody that can make you the sketch and the schematics for it. Not so good on actually putting it together, unfortunately. But good old Ulrich on Brawl did manage to make it for me, even through in all the idle gnomes you see around.
Have we met the person she mentioned?
No, you've not met Ulrich.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Or
Didn't
we
sound
tell
familiar.
ORWYCK.
YCK. Okay. I assumed it was I, like a normal person.
I did too.
Mhm.
And then I was like, no, it's gotta be fantasy.
Did it say Brawl?
Yes, he is on
On
Brawl.
Brawl, yeah.
Okay.
So
And
we could
if you want,
potentially meet him.
you all can roll history if you'd like to see if any of you know Orwick, and I'll let you have it. Well, okay, I was about to say, I was about to give out some advantage, but fucking
Sorry.
Fucking
Booker can't
Give me
have advantage.
nah,
14 would help. Well, is what you
nah,
get.
Mm.
That's fine.
Holy shit.
I got this from Orwick, Button's eyes.
Are you rolling, Iris?
I need my dice, damn it.
Were you unable
my
to
dice.
get your dice?
No, I got it. It's just dark.
Dork.
Okay. What is the roll?
History.
Yes. Let me get my flashlight before I roll.
Oh my god. Are you just like in the dark?
Yes.
Just entirely in the dark?
Mostly. That is a 13.
Total?
I think my history is -1.
Ah.
12.
Yeah.
So,
the kitchen like over sink light is on, so like night light. And I'm
Ah.
in the living room.
The night light's on already? It's 9 p.m.
Yeah. Better than having actual lights on.
so Booker, you've heard of in Orwick. You're pretty sure that there's an Orwick Cogsworth that's known to be an inventor of some sort on Brawl. You've never had occasion to go anywhere near his shop to know more, but it is a name that you've heard in passing. Button's
read his book.
Button, you know Orwick Cogsworth. It's a gnome inventor that lives on Brawl and is primarily somebody that builds other auto gnomes, which every single auto gnome that he builds is an exact replica of himself. They look exactly like him. Or at least what he thinks he looks like still. He is a very, very old gnome at this point. And so most of them look younger than him, but still him. And he beyond auto gnomes, he specializes in making various items that are used by and for spelljammers and explorers of wild space in the astral sea. In fact, you first came across his name because he helped in the designing of a lot of the things that you used at the academy. Of the training spelljamming helms, of the specialty simulation rooms. He helped in the designing and creation of those.
Ooh. Button's eyes focused. Their attention has been, their head, they were looking at the telescope, but their head snaps to attention and rotates so fast. How do you spell Cogsworth?
COGS, worth like money.
Gotcha, thank you. I wasn't sure if it was 1 G or 2 G's.
Just one.
Okie doke. But it's very, like, it's very obvious when Button is tuned into something.
Button has no subtlety. Subtlety
But
is not in their dictionary.
it's not. They do know the definition of subtlety. Do they understand it and know how to apply it? The answer is no. That 9 charisma, there is no hiding. That Button is intrigued. The Button snaps to attention and says, "Do you mean Orwick Cogsworth?"
And you see Topla just nod, and as she does, the brim of her hat bounces a little bit, and she seems to get momentarily distracted by the movement in front. You see her kind of pause, and then nod again and watch the brim of the hat bounce in her view, and then slowly take the hat off. It's just messy mop of pale blonde hair underneath.
Button is also momentarily distracted by the flop of the hat before going back to her face. That is intriguing, that you have something built by him.
Well, technically, multiple somethings. And she just kind of gestures around, and you see the 2 auto gnomes that were polishing the telescope have moved to quickly kind of start tucking away and rolling up some of the sketches and half-finished maps, seemingly in anticipation that, okay, there's going to be people moving around and this needs to get out of the way.
Hold on. I want...
And you see both of them get identical to each other, identical to all the ones below, and the most prominent features on every single one of these auto gnomes is just massive copper handlebar mustache and like pointed goatee and a very thick, almost two slabs of metal that are thick and what you assume to be supposedly eyebrows that are just so large that they almost form a single brow across the top of their face.
Button nods. A total of 9 somethings. Unless there are more?
No, just my telescope here and the auto gnomes. Fortunately, couldn't convince him to give me anything else. At least last time I talked to him. I might need to go to Brawl at some point and see if I can get something else. I don't know what I would actually ask for, considering I have everything I want. She just kind of sits in a chair that is positioned at the very end of the telescope and kind of pauses and looks at all of you. Don't suppose there's anything particular that any of you want to be looking at? She kind of pats the telescope.
Do you know anything interesting?
Oh, there's plenty of things interesting. Some of the most gorgeous plants you could ever think of come from fair space, and, well, of course, there's gardens, which is beautiful this time of year, but I'm assuming that y'all have been to garden before if you've flying around realm space. There's also the towers that are far in Githyanki space, but that's probably just a little bit outside of range right now, if I'm remembering my times correctly.
I would like to see everything.
One at a time, Button. Pat him on the head.
I would like to see everything one at a time.
I'm curious as to what your favorite places are. I mean, someone like you has to have some really interesting taste.
And she kind of smiles, and there's a little bit of a nod. There's so many interesting spaces out there. If I'm gonna be completely frank with you. Let me see here, and she turns towards the telescope, and you see a kind of sparkle and shimmer in the air, and she very quickly summons a mage hand that moves towards a distant set of controls at the far end of the telescope as she starts to mess with a handful on her end. And as she's working, I pressed very closely against this viewing glass. She hasn't looked back at you. So what can I attribute this nice little visit for?
Well, if you consider it a bad omen or not. Not sure if you'll consider it a bad omen or not, but we need to look into Doom Space.
And there's just a little tilt of the head. Again, not pulling away from the telescope. And she's silent for a second. And she seems to make some final adjustments and steps away from the telescope and kind of motions for whoever wants to come look, come look. And as she stands and kind of steps away, you see her turn towards Crux, and there's just this kind of arch brow. So you're heading out that way again? And you see Crux kind of lift a hand to the back of his head, almost seeming embarrassed. Well, we have to. Assuming you've seen what's going on inward. There's this kind of tight frown. And you see her eyes drift over the rest of you. Don't suppose any of you actually from realm space then? Or are you?
I'm sorry, did you
Aren't
say
we
realm
all?
space?
Yeah, all of you are from realm space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Booker shrugs and says, well, at least I am. Can't speak for the other two, but they look and feel like realm spacers.
Affirmative.
Who, I'm assuming Button ran for the telescope first. As she stepped away.
I don't think Button ran. Button was just there.
Appeared. Apparated.
And they're just slowly moving towards it the entire time. So when she backs away, Button is already there.
Roll me a d10.
Just one?
Yes.
tree. My throat hurts.
So, as you kind of come up and are able to look into this viewing scope, you see the telescope has been honed in on, at first, what looks like just a giant chunk of multicolored crystal. And as you kind of try to focus in just a little bit more and try to process what you're looking at, you very quickly realize that this is like an asteroid made out of pure crystal. Like just 5 or 6 giant shards. One green, one red, one blue. And then you realize that there's figures, very, very tiny figures. But figures moving alongside and into a door in the side of this crystal. And as you're kind of watching and trying to focus and following these figures, you realize there's glowing inside of it, and somebody has hollowed out this crystal and turned it into a building of some sort, and by the various flickering lights that you can see inside and the figures coming in and out, and even a handful of jolly boats, which are lifeboats in this setting, which you see kind of drift in front of your gaze, blocking your view of the crystal for a moment before drifting on. You're pretty sure that that's an outpost that has been put into a crystal asteroid.
Can we tell what kind of creatures are manning the outpost?
No. They're
Fair enough.
You're not able
Too
to
small?
get that. Yeah, they're too small. They are humanoid of some shape, and there seems to be multiple sizes of humanoid, but that's about all you get.
Huh.
Concerning.
Well, Button immediately starts writing this down. With zero hesitation. They start, it just scribble.
Booker will walk over and take a peek, and then when he sees all that info, he just kind of tenses up a little bit and says, "That crystal structure out there. Have
The
you
ale
been...
barrel.
What was that?"
The ale barrel. Ale as in drink ale. Barrel, B-E-R-Y-L.
Ah. There's a, like, there's a pause as Booker processes and goes, "Is that really what it's called? The ale barrel?" Huh.
She nods.
What is this? Where is this?
It's I guess you could just say it's a resting spot, I suppose. Something that you have out in the astral sea. Some people intentionally go there, some people just end up landing there when they need it.
Are there like a lot of outposts like that out there?
A lot might be stretching it, but there are a handful, yeah. My favorites would have to be the ale barrel and Starfish Bay.
Are there multiple ale barrels?
Oh, no, not multiple. The proprietor of the ale barrel would have somebody's head if they tried to cop it.
But wait. So there only is the one ale barrel, but you can get to it from multiple places?
Oh, yes.
How does that work?
Well, it's the Astral Sea, huh?
Booker raises a finger and goes to ask a question, and then thinks about it for a second. Space is fucky wucky in the Astral Sea, ain't it?
Yes.
Yeah. That's about where Booker, like, yep, no, that tracks.
Hmm. Wait, if it is the same one, if there is only one, how do you have a favorite?
Yeah, you said it's one of my favorite places.
Oh,
I think the ale bear is really pretty to look at, don't you?
It's
yes.
certainly something to behold.
Tiny.
Oh, is Trixie lost in the sauce?
Shiny.
Oh, just a little bit. Just a little bit.
And she kind of places her hands on her hips, and she's kind of smiling at all of you, seemingly amused by this, and tilts her head. Y'all ain't too familiar with the Astral Sea, is you?
I could stand to be more familiar with it. Scratches the back of his head, kind of embarrassed.
No. I have never been in the Astral Sea.
Hell.
Hmm.
Do you want me to fill you in just a little bit, at least as much as I
Yes.
can?
That would be really helpful.
The answer is yes.
Well, I guess there's two ways I could explain all this, and as she speaks, she kind of shoos whoever is in the seat out of the seat, sits back down, and starts fiddling with the telescope again. Do you want the full version or the Cliff Notes version?
The full version.
The Cliff Notes version. We're kind of on a tight schedule here. Looks at Button, kind of puts a hand on a hip, like, we can come back and
Button
let you... Oh, go ahead.
mirrors the fucking pose, hand on hip. We need information.
Yeah,
Yes,
to be
the high
fair,
points.
to be fair though, knowing what we're up against would be kind of useful, maybe.
Fine. The full version, but condensed, if you don't mind.
Or if you have a book that we could take with,
And
or note.
you just kind of get this like hum from her. Like she's hearing everything that you're saying, but she is not looking away from the telescope. So I need roles from people so I can say what people recognize as this is happening. And you can roll as many of these as you want, but I need history, religion, and arcana.
One of each?
Yes, one of each.
Okay.
And I will say you can, because of your characters, Booker can have advantage on arcana. Button can have advantage on history, and Trixie can have advantage on religion.
Well, the first thing I rolled was a 20. I didn't really pick which one I was rolling yet, so I'm just gonna go in order of how you said it.
That's what I did.
Mm-hmm. History. You said religion and arcana?
Yes.
God damn. 2 nat 20 history checks.
That
Holy shit, I was tabbed out. I didn't
Okay.
see it.
that was another 20. I'm gonna just re-roll this.
Oh, information gathering. Be like,
Yeah, just type out your results when you're done, Iris.
mhm.
So I have
Okay.
them. And you better crack your note-taking fingers, Amy.
But, like, not break them.
Okay, do you want me to separate them by history, religion, and arcana?
You're essentially going to end up with a story, but I'm going to be like prefacing, okay, this section here is familiar to this person.
Okay. Give me a second. Let me write down all the rolls.
You said history, religion, and then arcana?
Yes. So that's a
So,
nat 20 on history, a nat 20 on religion for you, and then just one more roll for your arcana.
yeah. Well, I rolled the 19, which arcana is -1, so that'd be 18.
Okay.
Apparently, Trixie really wants this information.
Well, it's gonna for Trixie, this is going to start connecting pieces of stories that she has heard.
Then yeah, she really wants this information.
Tell me, which one was in that 20 for you, Iris? Was it both of them?
Religion and history.
Okay.
I'm never gonna roll this well ever again in my life. Ever.
Wait, are your nat 20s 19s?
I got a nat 20, a nat 20, and then a 19.
Which is an 18.
Yeah, which is an 18. Sorry.
Okay.
So, as Topla is fiddling with this telescope, you see her reach underneath it, and there's a massive kind of I don't know what to call it. It's like the wheel with like the stick coming out, so you can just turn the wheel using the one stick around and around.
Mm-hmm. I know
Yeah.
what you mean.
It's
Like a
crank.
valve.
Like a
Kinda.
valve type wheel.
Hand crank.
Hand crank, there we go. And you see her start to turn, and as she is turning this hand crank, the entire room starts to turn on its base as she is swinging the room and thus the telescope around to look at something else. There's just this little discomfort of jostling and moving where you're not supposed to be moving before you're all able to kind of settle again. And as this is happening, she just starts talking. Well, if you're gonna go all the way back to the beginning to understand all this, you have to go all the way back to Ao. Which all of you have heard of Ao. And that is considered by some to be the most primordial god there is. The god that came before all other gods. And she kind of pauses in her turning for a second, seeming to look at something, and then continues, and the room starts shifting again. Way back when Ao started pulling parts of himself apart to make everything else. And part of all that, well, he used to create, let's just say. He used to make the gods, and the gods made to use, or the gods turn around and used to make the planets and the spheres and all the little critters on it. That energy, that particle, is what makes up the astral sea. If you break down all of us into small enough pieces, we would just be the same thing that the astral sea is made out of. Well, little extra, that part comes from, well, I guess the term that would be easiest for all you to remember is the elemental chaos. And she kind of, at that, kind of sits up a little bit straighter and looks over each of you. See, the bits and pieces that make up us, and make up the astral sea, and make up even the weave and the magic that we use. As she does that, she pokes whoever is closest to, like, reaffirm, like, matter. Has an opposite. That opposite comes in the form of energy, which is the element of chaos. That's a place where you get a lot of your elementals from, and beings that aren't quite physical. And she turns back towards the telescope. Now, easiest way you can imagine things is the astral sea itself is exactly what it's called. It's just a massive sea of this energy and this material. But because it is the building blocks of everything, and not anything in particular itself, it's very susceptible to influence. A god can make a planet, or a set of gods can make a crystal sphere, or even their own astral domains from these building blocks. And even us in our own small way can move those blocks how we want them. So, you go out there and know what you're looking for, you can essentially pull yourself through those blocks faster than if you were just walking across the land to try and find something. Because you're attracting yourself to what you're looking for. However, if you don't know where you're going, or are confused about what you want or need, the astral sea can't really help you much because it don't really have no direction or nothing to push or pull you towards. So you just start drifting. Because of that, somebody on this side of realm space here can, let's just say, set out for the air barrel. And if they know that they want to get to the air barrel, they can get there a couple of days. However, somebody clear on the other side of the sphere can set out, not know where they're going, because they're so confused about what they're looking for or what they need, the astral sea itself just pushes them towards the air barrel. Of course, that's all made just a little bit more complicated by the interaction of everything that's just floating in the sea itself. She kind of pauses and looks over each of you. How lost does everybody look at this point?
Booker is a little lost, but he's keeping up with like the idea and the mechanics of it. He's just trying to revisit the thread about like, wait, does this have anything relevant to do with whatever we're here for, or is this just all a side tangent?
Button is not lost at all. Button is paying very close attention. They're on the page. They're on the exact fucking line.
Booker is at a mean 75.
Trixie was following, but there was a certain point where her eyes started glazing over a little bit. Just a little. And by a little, I mean a lot.
She judges, it's like, okay, overall, they're following, and gives a little nod. And she kind of leans back in her chair and starts talking with her hands for a moment. So, just making things a little bit more complicated. Just imagine you'll have a pond or something. Got something floating in the pond, and then you toss something else in, and all the ripples of that thing being added in affect where and how that first object moves, right? That's how things go bumping and colliding into each other and pushing each other off in astral space and go spinning in different directions. So that's why navigating's just a little harder out there. And you just think, well, you just gotta know where everything is until the gods start messing around and start adding and taking away things that were there before and all of a sudden pop up out of nowhere. And she pauses and why don't you roll me a D100?
Dibs. Clean 40.
And she kind of pauses and there's a little smile and she leans towards the telescope and you see her very quickly starting to fiddle with the controls and the mage hand on the far end start to fiddle with them as well. And of course, there's always the issue of when gods die or fade away, their physical remains are also destined to hang around the astral sea and cause all types of issues. And as she says that, you see her pause and nod, and she shifts and moves so that each of you can take a look through the telescope again. And this time you see just the swirling, at first, just swirling gray, purple, blue of the astral sea. What you assume to be just a massive asteroid belt of some sort. Not wholly unlike the one that you are currently at the very tail end of in this tower. However, as you look just a second longer and an asteroid moves out of the way and drifts by, you see those aren't giant rocks, or at least not all of them are. So you see a hand that is the size of an asteroid, still wrapped with golden rings that have been faded and corroded with time, and a chain that you assume used to connect to a bracelet dangling in space.
But what is that?
Remains of some god or other, probably one that got, judging by the amount of decay and debris around it. Imagine one of the last big wars between all of them out there on the edge of space.
One of the last big wars.
Oh, hun. Gods don't ever stop fighting, not really.
Oh,
Scribble, scribble.
That is actually horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Booker looks horrified, but is containing himself.
Hmm.
She just kind of pats the telescope. If you're lucky or unlucky when you're out there, you may or may not come across other little bits and pieces like that. Githyanki and Githzerai seem to have some fondness for taking up home and roosting around them. I think the little mount creatures and dragons, they like to fly, like living in them. But then again, their entire home city is in the entire corpse of a god.
How well known is that knowledge? Would Booker know that they're like the Githyanki and Githzerai actually live inside of the corpse, or
Uh, with the religion that you have and the arcana that you have, it is something that you have heard in passing, but you always assumed it was more of a rumor or a tall tale of some sort. But so you're not 100% sure if she is like conspiracy theorist throwing full support behind something that is bullshit, or if she is telling the truth and like is certain of it. However, she is speaking very matter of factly, so either way, she believes what she is saying 100%. And you did just see the hand of a dead god, so.
yeah, fair.
Button raises up their hand.
Yes.
Who was that? Do you know? Is there a way to find out? Pointing to the telescope.
She kind of looks through the telescope again herself, and you see her kind of frown. Well, there's a short list of them I could guess at, but no, not off the top of my head. I wouldn't be able to really tell you which one that is. A little harder when you only see bits and pieces of them.
Button's head tilts at like a clean, 45-degree angle. So, even gods can die.
More or less. Really kind of depends on what you think of as the god and what you think of as death. A lot of the gods that have the physical bodies can die, and some of them their personalities do, but generally, at least as far as I'm aware and have heard, one dies, their powers go on to somebody else.
Yeah, and if you listen to all the stories, there are different ways for gods to die, right? Some of them are probably not true, but
She nods. And different gods have different, sources, let's just say. Some of them are the old gods made of the astral sea and star stuff themselves. Some are just byproducts of other things existing, and some are entirely dependent on the belief and power of those that follow them. So you take away the followers and they ain't much of a god and they can't really exist as a god no more. But the oldest ones, well, they're the ones that tend to linger. And she starts again to turn the hand crank and the room continues to shift. Now, y'all are trying to go setting out in the astral sea and after doom space and all that. I can only assume this is all about them elves, huh?
Nod.
bingo.
And she pauses and kind of looks each of you in the eye. So you all know what they're doing to, to realm space at this point.
I didn't catch that. Repeat that really quick.
She's asking if everybody knows what they're doing to realm space.
I assume the answer is destroying it.
Well,
Consuming it, right?
yes, they're consuming it, all of it, and then they'll move on to a different sphere.
Would you believe me if I said we were on a holy mission?
Booker flinches.
And she kind of looks at Trixie and kind of like sizes Trixie up and then sizes the rest of you up, like head to toe and back. Talked to me 20 years ago and I would have laughed in your face, but let's just say I've seen stranger these days. She finishes cranking the room around, and you all realize that she has turned the room and the telescope so that it's no longer looking out the crystal sphere, but inward into realm space. And she fiddles with it for a second, and there's just, as she pauses, this little breath out, a little click of the tongue, and she very kind of solemnly steps back and away from the telescope. Well, if you're from realm space, this will be about your last opportunity to look back home if you want.
I've had my fill. I'm looking ahead.
Trixie will take this opportunity.
As you look into the telescope, you see that it has been angled to look towards the inner worlds of realm space. And you see that it is focused primarily on Toril. And it's at the center of your view, but you can see what you assume to be Carpri and Anadia, two other of the inner worlds, kind of off on the edges. And Toril, which you've seen at a distance a handful of times on the short run spelljamming voyages that you've taken since the academy. And it was always this kind of lush green and blue planet of forest and water. You see that it is tinted orange, with the sheer number of vines that have grown. You can still see pockets, areas of either water or mountain or desert, where you assume that either the vines have not reached yet, or there has been something to push back against the vines. But it is a startling contrast to what you remember and even what you saw leaving only a few weeks ago. And you can see Anadia also seems to have this very slight orange tint to it. However, Carpri, though you can see one or two spikes, it doesn't seem to have been enveloped or being enveloped yet.
Trixie takes in a breath and she's like, maybe that wasn't the best idea.
What do you mean? Button motions, gimme.
It just reminds me what we're doing, why we're doing this, you know?
I assume, Button, you're easily able to move into the telescope position from Trixie.
Stands up on the chair.
You see the exact same thing.
Oh.
Booker
Yeah.
feels pretty good about his choice, having stood a couple feet away from the telescope, looking a little bit more affirmed in his resolve.
Button nods. Pat the telescope. Hops off the chair.
Tapla is kind of Gin has her hands resting on her hips, and she's kind of like staring at the telescope, and then looks towards all of you. Now, I don't really know where the elves of this empire are, where they're from even. I've tried my best to locate them through the years, since I found out about them and what they were doing. But at least this group, this empire, they stay mobile. So I don't think they're actually from any, or at least not currently living in, any crystal sphere in and of itself. I would assume, at least next logical step to assume, that wherever their base is, functions very much like the ale barrel, or one of the astral dominions or god bodies that are in the astral sea. That it's someplace that moves, someplace that shifts in response to other things. She kind of looks over to Crux and Flinch, and then back towards Booker, and then down towards Button. And you're the navigator, you said?
Nod. Very big nod. A single one.
And she smiles and walks over to one of the shelves on the side of the room and reaches up and pulls down a wooden chest. It's about 1.5, 2 feet long, another foot or so across. Very carefully sets it on one of the tables that has been cleared off by the outer gnomes, and opens it up and pulls out a odd little kind of spherical metal and glass contraption. and places it on the table beside the trunk. Or beside the chest. And taps on it. So if you're the navigator, and by the looks of you, probably also the one that flies the ship most of the time, well, you
Nod.
and the resident wizard over there, and you see her glance over to Micken, who is across the room, has been listening to all of this, very clearly fascinated, but one of the first things that caught his attention was a absolutely massive pelican nest that's on the opposite side of the room that has a few baby pelicans in it, and they kind of are having a staring contest from what you can tell. Of the pelicans not quite sure what to do with this strange person, and Micken not quite sure what to do and how to react to baby fuzzy pelicans that are the size of large cats.
Of fucking course, Micken struggles with the birds.
Leave the boy alone. Let him cook.
I'm gonna have to tell the birds not to bully him.
It's not antagonistic. It's more like Micken wanted to go over and investigate, and then got pinned by a stare down. Now it's just this like mutual curiosity, but also like this is a strange and weird thing both directions.
There's equal amounts of curiosity and anxiety on both parties.
Micken, stop messing with the birds.
And Micken just like flinches and head snaps around. I'm not messing with them. I've not
Don't pick
touched them.
fights.
Fights!
Booker immediately disengages from the conversation, just leaves him with "don't pick fights" and then turns away.
Fumbling for words and also not knowing what to do now. On the opposite side of the room.
But Button nods and confirms as she gestures between themselves and Megan. Like, yes, we take turns spelljamming.
And Topla kind of places a hand very carefully and very delicately on the top of this contraption. So I'm assuming that since the two of you are the ones that's doing the flying and the ones that need to get to Doom Space, y'all came for the orrery here.
Nod.
That would be correct.
And she kind of smiles and leans over this orb, and you can see her start to very carefully unscrew and open a few things, and there's a tiny compartment that's about 3-4 inches square at the very base of this. Now, how this functions is you have to place something. If you've never been to where you're going to, this helps you navigate and helps pull you through the astral sea in the direction you need to go. Now, if you know where you're going, you've been there before, you can essentially use psychic power to navigate yourselves and point yourself in the right direction. If you don't have that memory, you don't know where you've been and where you're going, you have to use a little bit of something actually from where you're trying to get there correctly and fast at the very least. I mean, you can fumble your way through, but again, that can take sometimes far longer than you actually want to commit to getting there. The orreries, you take, well, really anything that originates from and belongs to where you're going. You stick it right here. She gestures towards the little opening at the bottom. And you attach it to your spelljamming helm. It pushes magic through it and guides you. It's a little finicky, but generally does the work.
Does all the psychic shit for you?
Pretty much. Or at least it essentially points you in the right direction, and then you can focus yourself on going the direction it's pointing you. Kind of like following a string through the dark.
Or a compass.
In a way, yes.
Compass that points to where you want to go instead of north.
Now that would be useful.
So what will it take for you to part with it?
And she kind of looks at it and tilts her head. Well, I don't get out of the tower too much myself, so I don't really have much need of it. However, I could use a little bit of a favor if you don't mind doing it for me before I give it to you. There's been a little bit of trouble out here in the boats that I need to get taken care of before it scares off all the people that actually come and are useful to me.
What is... Jesus. What is the favor?
How much do you know about scavers?
Know of
Yes.
them.
There's a particular ornery thing out here we call a big mama. Void scaver that's been picking off the merchant vessels that come back and forth to me. Doars for all their, well, let's just say their mercantile wisdom are not much at fighters. Aren't faring particularly well against her. If you guys will take care of her, get her out of the way, oh, I can see about lending y'all this little gizmo. Though I would be wanting it back, as you understand it is a little bit hard to come by.
Oh boy. Sorry, I'm just remembering. Haha, a void scaver, huh?
Mm.
Oh boy.
So, how big and mean is this particular void scaver?
Well, let's just say I'm actually surprised she didn't come and attack y'all on your way here. She must have just ate recently.
Void scavers. They are 20 feet on average, can be bigger on occasion. Is this an occasion?
And she kind of, see like side to side head motion. I'd say a bit bigger than 20, maybe not by much. Maybe pushing 30.
Nod. I would be willing to take this deal if everyone else would like to join me.
I'm amenable to it. I think we got the spare firepower.
And she kind of smiles. Well, if you're up for it, that's perfect. Are you, I can give you all the option, because you look a little rougher for wear, if you don't mind me saying. You are more than welcome to just take a load off here and wait until she comes back by around the tower. I imagine she will eventually. Or you can go hunting for her in the asteroid belt.
I think we should wait here until she shows up.
I believe sleep is needed.
You just hear
And-
like a little whine from Micken.
And if we wait here, Button can learn a whole bunch of new things. Right?
Button's head snaps to Trixie and then slowly turns to Toplet. In theory, I would like to learn many things. All of the things.
Toplet kind of smiles. Well, if you're going to be waiting here, I'll tell Ulrich 2 and 4 that they're going to have an extra couple guests for a meal. Don't know exactly what they're cooking up, but imagine most of you going to be able to stomach it.
Button kind of stops and tilts their head. Do they not have names?
And Toplet just shakes her head. Didn't come with no names, never asked for none. They just always call themselves Ulrich 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Convenient, at least.
Oh,
Roll me a button. Roll me a history or a nature at advantage.
forever crying that nature is an intelligence chat. Stat, not chat. The fuck? Are you fucking kidding me?
So,
Yeah. What the fuck?
Button, you've met a handful of other autognomes.
Hmm.
They're still generally few and far between compared to some of the more common races in realm space.
Hmm.
However, you do know and you do recognize that autognomes are considered a newer race. Warforged have been around for a while. Warforged come from the original Warforged came from a very specific kind of empire and continent on Toril, and have been there historically. Autognomes are the oldest autognomes are somewhere around 50 or 60 years old. So they are still very young, very new, and as such, a lot of autognomes, especially autognomes that you would kind of consider like quote unquote mass produced, have very, very basic, very minimal programming. A couple of primary directives, in that being it. So it is uncomfortable and uncommon for Button, as Button is a kind of advanced and has been given a lot of leeway, a lot of ability to learn and grow and shift and change. But from what you know of Ulrich Cogsworth, the actual inventor, and the fact that he just produces copies of himself in autognome form, it is not out of the question for these autognomes to be kind of base factory models, for lack of a better description.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Button's reaction is still the same. Just, oh.
Mm. Topla kind of looks over everybody, and she starts to place the orrery back away inside the chest. Very carefully, very delicately. Well, if y'all gonna be staying and waiting for dinner, anything else I can answer for you or try to help you with? Beyond just everything. She kind of gives a little amused smile as she glances at Button.
Button is paying attention to the autognomes in the room and what they're doing before she turns back and very Button was very still, right? Their head was moving as they watch, and she turns back to look at Topla, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like when you accidentally hit the emote animation on a character. She just very suddenly just shrugs in a manner exactly like Trixie. Posture just becomes Trixie shrug. Before it goes back to that very like still posture as they start looking towards the platform and telescope.
Booker, ow, God, sorry, Rolo's jumped off my lap. So Booker will just find a spot to settle in. Um, probably somewhere off to the side where he's a little bit out of the way. And you said since this was the observatory, there's like shelves and other kind of books and scrolls and stuff on the wall, or is that a different?
There are more books on the floor below. This one is more maps and sketches and such.
Okay.
So this is more the cartography and the observation.
Mm-hmm. Booker will just Iris.
Yeah.
You
Sorry,
good?
I zoned out for a second.
You zoned out, huh?
It's alright.
It's all good.
Could you please
But
repeat that?
at just like while we're waiting for the big mother to show up, what are we doing as we hang out here? Because Button is going to obviously do absorb as much information as they can from this area.
Mm-hmm.
Booker is not really going to do anything super significant. He's going to kind of mull around and busy himself with whatever kind of text is available in this room.
Mm.
And is there anything in particular that you want to do as Trixie?
I hadn't really thought of anything when I said we should stay here. It was more of just like long rest. I mean, I got my books to read with. Let's find some more fun stuff to read. Let's pick another random book.
Let's see.
Maybe it'll be useful.
That's not what I need. Oh no, that's a chaos roll.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, roll me a d12, Iris.
A d12? Okay. Baggie of dice. Give me d12. Please.
And then,
D6.
Joe, you can give me a d100.
A 69. Damn it.
Sorry, trying to find my d12. Here it is. That is a 1.
Okay. So, Booker's kind of looking around. He is able to find something that looks a little different than the standard star maps. And what you assume to be kind of positional maps for the astral sea. It's a couple that you can tell are kind of, this sphere is generally in this area, and this sphere is generally somewhere in this area, and they're usually somewhere close to each other or close to this thing. Not easy maps where it's just, follow this direct line and this thing's always going to be there. But there's something different, and as you kind of squint at it, you see notations that have been written in a very, very neat but very cramped handwriting. And you see at the top the label on the massive picture is World Axis.
Oh.
And let me see if I can find it. Here we go. And you see something that looks like this. Very close to it.
Listen. Ooh.
In by the notes that you can see kind of crammed along the sides and at the bottom, it looks like this is some sort of theoretical setup for understanding the connections of things. There's a lot of do these connect? Where is this question mark kind of notes that are on it? But you do get to stare at that or ask a question about it if you would like. Let me see here. You rolled a 1 on your books. Nope, I don't need you to do this. I need you to do this. So as you kind of flip through the books, Trixie, you find one that... Where did I tuck this? In this fucking obsidian vault. Give me 2 seconds. I forgot where I stuck my lore shit.
No rush. Would this 2 seconds be long enough to go use the restroom?
Run. Run quickly.
Oh,
I am also going to run.
I guess we're having a pause.
fool. This map is very weird. It makes me feel like I understand more of how things are set up for the Faerun universe, and also less how things are set up.
I will say that when you go through like the lore of Faerun and Forgotten Coast and all, or Forgotten Realms and all that type of shit, because they keep rewriting the lore, things shift a lot. So you also have to be like, okay, when am I placing this? And if you can answer when, it will vastly change how the universe is supposed to be set up.
Huh.
Because like every time there's like a major like you don't have to know what it is, but you've heard of like the spell plague.
Yes.
So like when there's a major event like spell plague or something, like the entire structure of the cosmos can change.
Hmm.
And I am taking and running with a very loose tangential concept of the structure called the world axis.
I'm back.
And
Hello.
that is this model here, which is everything is kind of built around the material plane as like a nexus.
In a way.
Huh. Neat.
This reminds
I
me of
can
like old lore you can find in like movies and stuff.
I can explain more if you want Booker to have asked about it.
Yes. I was going to have Booker ask about it for sure.
Okay. I'll wait for Iris to come back.
No, I'll say I didn't realize it till now that like, man, Button is probably always very sad and disappointed whenever they find a autognome that is just base.
Base programming.
Yeah. So I feel like a little bit of the wind is out of their sails now.
Oh.
They're not nearly as excited as they were a few minutes ago.
Just think of it this way. Because Button does not age or die or anything like that, Button can watch as fucking autognomes grow and change and become their own race and culture in their own right.
That's very true.
Must be patient.
Button, one of the characteristics I have developed for Button is that they are very impatient.
We will fix that.
Or else.
Yeah, it does not quell the disappointment and sadness.
I'm returned.
Hello. Button has discovered disappointment and sadness. Well, not discovered.
I'm sorry, that's how this is written.
Oh, I know, it's fine. I find it's very interesting for the character to get excited. Remember how excited they were when they met Wizpop?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just like number 2 and 4, and Button's like, wait, what? It's like, aw. They're just Roombas with legs. It could be so much more.
So, Trixie, let's start off with you, because
Okay.
what you get in your book is what you get in your book.
Yeah.
One that you pull out of the set and kind of start flipping through, you very quickly realize it is a story about the origin and movement and ultimate place of what one might call a soul, and understanding what happens to them and what they are. And at the very beginning of the book, or of the little story, you see, again, a name that you just heard. You see the origin of the soul being attributed to Lord Ao, who, when creating the universe and the gods, created an infinite reservoir of energy from which all souls are granted just a drop of to give them life. And that drop of divine energy that is at the core of all living beings creates their soul. And in this story, helps the nourishment and strengthening of the gods or gods that they worship and serve through their lifetime. This is why the gods compete for attention, compete for favor, compete for dominion in some cases. As for some, terror is just as useful as affection. And in repayment, the gods have agreed that should that drop of divine energy, that soul, that core of a being, have served them through their life, strengthened them, they will take that energy, they take that soul into their astral dominions, so long as they were faithful and true. However, that path, that migration of the soul from the material to the astral, has not always been easy. As when the energy has nothing left to cling to, no physical form, and has not yet been moved to the appropriate dominion, it is left on what is called the fugue plane. An endless, featureless place of memory and contemplation, where the soul waits for a guide to take them where they need to go. Those that had no faith, had no favor, had no, in some cases, owner or ruler in life, or those that betray the God that they worship, are meant to find themselves in front of a judge. A God whose only purpose is to keep the fugue plane and be the custodian of those in between. The god that for many, many years served as this divine judge, let the fugue plane overflow with the lost and the confused, didn't aid in deciding the fate of those that are trapped in between. But he was eventually killed. And another came to take his place. One who is more than capable of judging a soul false or faithless, of calling on guides to shuttle souls to their appropriate dominions. And the name that is given to this god, the one that has set the fugue plane correct, set it to its true purpose once more, is Kalimvor. Roll me a religion real fast, Eris.
Okay.
Is that the dwarf god?
Huh?
Is that the dwarf god?
No.
What am I thinking?
1920. Yep. That's a nat one.
Roll me a D100.
Who? Never heard of him.
That is a 27.
All them nat 20s and 19s and shit are coming back to bite you in the ass now.
Yep.
You kind of stare at the name, and there is some small inkling that you think you've heard that somewhere, but it was probably some lesson or discussion that you slept through. So you know Kalimvor is certainly not a god of night or the moon or the stars or travel. And as you just kind of like stare at the name for a second, you feel just the faintest tickle of a presence. And there's a moment where you kind of calm yourself and you grow very still and you think that that felt very much like Saloon behind you again. But just as quickly as it came, it left.
I have a meme for this.
And as Trixie is reading, Joe, you said you had questions with Booker.
Yes. Questions about the world axis. So I see the abyss and the nine hells are in like different locations And like looking at this, it seems like these other planes sort of revolve around the material plane, the mortal world. Is that how it works? Is that the theory behind the world axis?
So, how, if you kind of ask about this concept, I'll go without the accent to try and explain it as
Mm-hmm.
quickly and succinctly as I can. Um, the way that Topla is picturing the cosmos to be working, essentially, is that the astral sea and the elemental chaos are almost inhabiting the exact same space, or overlapping each other. However, one is physical, one is energy.
Hmm.
So the astral sea is the actual physical matter that makes up things in the divine and psychic creation of things. The elemental chaos is the energetic part of it. The elements themselves, the heat and light, and essentially how the mortal world is equivalent to any world in any crystal sphere that is floating through both the astral sea and the elemental chaos at the same time. If you've ever heard, the version of like multiverse where it's just essentially like you're living in the same space as another universe, but you're vibrating at different frequencies.
Yeah, yeah.
That type of concept.
Interesting.
Where the astral sea is one vibration pattern, the elemental chaos is the other. In the mortal world, because it takes from both, is kind of drifting through both at the same time.
Hmm.
There are, however, places that you can find that are harder to get to that serve as kind of crossing points. That would be places like the Shadowfell or the Feywild proper, and another handful of them. That if you find them, there are ways to get to pure astral or pure elemental chaos
Oh.
through those gateways.
Can creatures survive in those environments? Pure astral or pure elemental chaos?
It depends. Um, it is not some place that you can live, but it Topla would be able to essentially say it is theoretically possible to survive for a period of time, usually either with enough power or a blessing of some sort, or some kind of third factor at play.
Hmm.
As any individual being is comprised of both astral and elemental at the same time, you cannot be fully apart from the other one without losing the other half. Eventually.
Hmm. Booker makes note of that, and we'll investigate more about the particular avenues of accessing these areas later. But those are definitely areas of interest.
I figured you would like that.
Yeah.
And Amy,
What's up?
is there anything in particular that Button would be interested in or want to look at first or ask about in particular?
I'm trying to think. Because, like, I have an interest in maps and the telescope and looking at things. They already are going to do this thing to do the job is in progress, you know? We're doing the thing, right? The Doom Space thing. Um, I feel like for some reason I can't like get away from the fucking auto gnome thing. So I feel
Oh,
like
no.
Button is trying to like focus on the cool telescope and looking at things, but like out of the corner of their eye, they just see the auto gnomes working, and like their mind drifts to that.
Well, if Button is wanting map knowledge and like navigation knowledge, let's see here.
Hmm.
Give me 2 seconds to pull this up so I don't talk out of my ass. Would a Button, in talking with Topla, be more intrigued by complexity or unknown?
Ah, that's such a hard fucking question.
I
They
know, that's
love
why I
both of those
asked.
things. Oh, they love both of those things. I'm gonna flip a coin. Complexity or unknown? It's a coin flip. Unknown.
So, in Topla showing different places and kind of talking about different things, you do see she does reveal two places that she gives names of. 3 places. I'll give you 3.
Yay.
That just stick in your mind and kind of start to eat away because you have questions that she's unable to answer. The first is a what looks, she's shown you a couple of crystal spheres where you can see that kind of iridescent outer bubble encapsulating just various swirling colors of wild space inside, though she doesn't zoom in to see planets in all of these spheres. You just see the crystal spheres. And there's one that she shows you very briefly that rather than looking like a complete bubble, it looks like it's been shattered. And she refers to it as lost space. there's another that she lets you look at. That the crystal sphere, rather than being filled with the swirling colors and shifting patterns of wild space like you know it, is almost dark and void-like. And she calls it Sector Eta.
Oh,
ETA. Eta.
thank you.
And the last is not a crystal sphere. So you're kind of watching, and she lets you look through the telescope as she's moving it and repositioning it. You've seen more and more of the swirling gray and purple and blue of the astral sea. You're beginning to become familiar with the appearance of it. And you see almost like a haze of deep black and gray and navy that is dark and heavy in appearance compared to the sea around it. And she refers to that as no space.
Huh. And are just the names of it the only information Button is able to get?
I will say that you can choose one, and I can give you more information about it. Though not tonight, because I need to grab my shit for those specific ones.
Hmm.
You can
Bold.
put it into your button chat when you decide, and I can give you a mini write-up.
Thank you.
And are there any other specific questions that you guys would like to ask of this astral sea scientist, more or less?
I don't have anything off the top of my head.
Other than 20 questions interviewing her and her life story, because I'm sure it's very interesting.
I know I'm gonna have questions later, but I can't think of what they are going
Yeah.
to be.
Alright. Well, that we'll call it a session.
With the big mother on the horizon
Yep, with Big
of
Mama
space.
coming.
Space Jaws! Fucking Space Jaws! Let's go! I love that movie so much.